Hello again, my fellow bipedal, oxygen breathing, carbon based humanoids, primates. I was just sitting around smoking and kind of come up with another memory. This was back in would have been 1993, I believe, the winter of 92, 93. I had moved to Alberta, got myself a job. I was doing okay for myself. I wasn't making big money at that job, not like some of the jobs out there, but I was making enough to, you know, I was all right. One of the guys at work, he had an 81 Monte Carlo. Nothing wrong with it. Just had the 305 four barrel spider gear rear end, so only one tire spun. It wasn't like they both spun at the same time. You could get them spinning at the same time. If you got one spinning pretty good, then the other one would try to catch up, and then you get traction. But I bought the car for next to nothing. Like the guy I bought it from, he just wanted to get rid of it. He had been driving it. Well, he bought it brand new. Like I said, this was '93, so it's only 12-year-old car. Wasn't something like 25, 30-year-old car that was just a clunker. In Alberta, there's no salt on the road, so there's it, very limited rust, and that was just surface rust, which I didn't give a shit about, especially for the price. So, come payday, I paid him, and I drove the car home, and we got paid on Friday, so I let the car sit there. I went to the DMV with a friend of mine and got everything all switched over so it was all legal and I had insurance on it. So Monday morning, I drove the car to work. Well, my boss, he tells me that one of the machines broke down over the weekend. They were trying to do some extra work just to catch up on a project or two. So they just had like a skeleton crew, and one guy didn't know what he was doing and hit the wrong buttons or flipped the wrong switches or something. I don't know what he did, but anyway, there there was a big press, and it had something like 40 tons of pressure or something like that that it pressed stuff together with. And anyway, fellow didn't check the grease before doing it and wasn't paying attention. And as the piston was going in and out, like it was, good 9 inch, 10-inch diameter, he wasn't seeing how hot it got, and it got too hot, and well, the rod bent just a little bit with the heat, and then when it tried to give the 40 tons, that whole thing went snap, and it tore, you know, the machine all to pieces. So we're going to be off work for at least a week. So uh, I helped out a bit with, cleaning up the mess and helping them, sort some stuff out and stuff for the day. So I got paid because this was before cell phones were a common thing, and I didn't have a house phone. So they had no way in contacting me over the weekend other than just send somebody to my house. And well, my address was private, and so they had no way of contacting me. So anyway, I drove home that night, and I got a fellow stop by and he says, "Hey man, I got a call from my brother. He's in Timmins, BC." I said, "Okay." He said, "You want to check out your car, see how well it works?" I said, "Well, I've ran it a couple hours there today. It seems to work all right, so why not?" I said, "You pay for the gas, and I'll take you there and back, pick up your brother." He says, "Awesome stuff." So this is going to be like a 2.5, 3 day trip. And out there, gas at the time, I think it was 39 cents a liter. So fill the tank for 20 bucks, 25 bucks, and go for, a couple 100 kilometers. So anyway, we get going through the foothills. Now I'm from the East Coast, and this is the first time I was ever going to drive through the mountains myself. I'd flown over them, and I was in a bus twice going through them, and I hitchhiked, and I was in a tractor trailer, and I got through the foothills, and then we stopped at a small town, and this guy in the pickup brought me the rest of the way into Vancouver. But I wasn't driving, so anyway, this was late September. I think that might have been what kicked in the memory. Is it's the 1st of September. So this guy, I had met him. I worked with him for a short time, but he left to go somewhere else. Uh, I'm not going to say his name, but he ended up boarding with me once he got the second job, because living with me was closer to work than where he was living before. It was something like 40-minute drive for him to go from his old place to work, and if he stayed with me, it was only like 10-minute drive. So no brainer there for him. So anyway, there we are. We're going through the foothills of the Rocky Mountains. We left Grand Prairie and we went through Beaver Lodge and out that way. I can't remember the names of all the towns, but uh, we got into British Columbia, and my buddy said that he knew the way to Timmins. He had it all marked off on his map. I had that part cut right out of a bigger map, but what the hell? We went with it. So we start, and I'm checking the numbers on the highway and making sure they're the right ones in the map, and we're going the right direction from what he had marked off with a marker highlighter. So we start going up these mountains after the foothills. And I thought the foothills were like big and huge and amazing. Then we started coming up onto the real Rockies, and I'm looking out, and I had to stop the car a few times just to get out and stare because, like I said, I'm from the East Coast. Tallest mountain in my province is Mount Carlton. I couldn't tell you how tall it is, but it's not that big. Like, it doesn't even reach a tenth of what the Rockies foothills are. So that's how hilly it is here. Anyway, I'm driving through, and we get close to Smithers, and getting low on gas, and it said the next stop wouldn't be for another 120 kilometers after leaving Smithers. So we pulled in there, and Buddy went to use his card, and I don't know how, but it was flagged for some reason. and he couldn't use his money. So I said, well, I got 200 bucks in my pocket. I'll just pay for it cash. Well, I paid for it, and we took off and just got out of town maybe 20, 30 kilometers, and then it started snowing. So I take the tape out of the tape deck. Yes, it was that long ago. And I put the radio on, the local weather, and there was a storm blowing in. Well, I didn't know it. We're too far up. We're already starting in the storm, so if we tried to turn around, we'd still have to go up probably another 10 kilometers to make it to another turnaround so that we could go back the other way, and that would be an illegal U-turn. So anyway, I said, well, I got decent tires on her. Let's go all the way. So Buddy says, if you're up for her, man, you know what to do. I said, well, let's give her. So we drive into this storm. He knew what a Rocky Mountain storm was like because he's from there. He was from the next town up from Smithers, which we were coming by. And the snow was starting to get piled up on the road. It was probably about 9-10 centimeters deep. And my car was just pushing itself right up the hill, no problem. Well, they've always got 2 lanes going up and 2 lanes coming down, just in case somebody's too slow and you can't slow down to that speed. You can make it out around. Well, my car was making good time going up the hill. But there was a log truck. Out there, logs, they put like maybe 5 logs on the truck. Whereas here you'll get, 250, 350. So these are huge logs. Like if I was to stand up the base of one and I'm 6 foot, there might be some that are, that much above me. So anyway, log truck's driving slow. And then there was another van. It was like a camper van. Something that just looks like a van, but it's all decked out for camping and whatnot. It's got the higher roof on it. It's got the flare around the wheel wells. Really beautiful van, but it wasn't going the same speed as us. Couldn't plow itself through. It was a little heavier than my car. Well, I flashed him my lights because I'm coming up quick behind him, and he's doing his best to pass that truck, and he couldn't do it. So he started slowing down, and he hit his tail lights, flashed at me a few times. So I gave him a quick flash of my headlights, and he got in behind a log truck. And I'm glad he did because just as he pulled in, I was coming up. I was, maybe a quarter of a kilometer behind him at the most. Not even 200 meters maybe. Anyway, I zoom on by him. And as I'm getting past the truck is spinning. And it's shooting slush, mud, and stuff like that everywhere. So I get as close to the center wall as I possibly can, and I give it a little more gas, not a lot, so it spin out, just give it some so it shoot me up there a little bit. I get up past the splashing and stuff, and the snow was at least that deep. I said, let's send her, bud. He said, send her. So I gave it a little more gas. And by this time, we're only doing maybe 80, 85 kilometers an hour, but that truck was doing 55 at best. And that van it couldn't do the 55. It had to fall in behind the truck. Well, they tried to get behind us and they still couldn't do it, so they just went in behind the truck where it's safest. And I kept going and I was trail braking. I pulled over to the right lane, so I was in front of the truck and I was trail braking for him. And we drove up and up and up, and it felt like hours. I know it wasn't. It was probably about an hour going out. But that's because, well, we had to slow down at times to go around bends, and there was other traffic on the road that slowed us down. But we we drove up out of the storm, and like the snow, literally, you could watch it taper off within a kilometer. And now we're up above, and like I'm looking at the stars in the sky, and there's this uh, tourist type pull off thing where you can stop and look down. Uh, there's supposed to be a railroad track through there, but with the storm, you couldn't see through the clouds. But you could look down and see the top of a snowstorm. I had never seen it before. And anyway, I'm looking down, and it's an amazing sight. If you haven't seen it, I suggest you do. Uh, but it was a low level storm, mid level storm, and we were way at the top. And anyway, I said, "You want to drive her down the hill?" He says, "Sure thing. Let's go for it." So we switched our seats around, and I was the passenger, so my job to roll and navigate. So I got the map, and I'm telling him where to go, and I got the music, you know, shotgun rules apply, even in your own car and you're in shotgun. Well, we come down into the backside of that storm. Luckily, it had tapered off, but what it left behind, uh, I'm going to say it was probably a good 40, 44 centimeters high. And the plow hadn't come up the hill yet to go back down. And there's a spot where you pull over if you're a trucker, where you check your brakes, and if you're a car, and you're hauling a wagon or camper or whatnot, that you make sure your safety cables are on, make sure it's hooked on the ball right, or on your whatever type of hitch you got, make sure everything's good. Brakes on it are good, the electric brakes are good, the whole thing, lights are working. That's what this place is for. Well, we're looking down and you could see the snow line. It's maybe 150, 250 meters away. You could see the snow line, so we knew there was going to be snow. And he says, "Well, let's wait for a truck. We'll follow a truck." I said, "That's a good idea." Going down the hill, like they're they're steep and windy. So we got behind this tractor trailer. There was a flatbed hauling, I don't know what now, but I remember it being a flatbed with a small load. Like, well, it looked small, probably heavy stuff, but it was doing probably about 70 coming through the snow, and all of a sudden it started slowing down a bit. So Buddy driving, he started slowing down a bit, and I said, "Well, do you think he's going to pull off into the next town? Because that snow was pretty friggin' deep, man. Like, he was pushing it with his bumper." And I didn't know until we got stopped there, because we followed him when he stopped. It wasn't the next town. He stopped, 3/4 way down. We followed in behind him, and his front bumper was actually a wedge. It was a regular bumper, but it was shaped in like a small wedge, but a wedge. So when it was plowing through the snow, it was actually plowing through the snow. And anyway, we had to stop for gas there anyway. So buddy, he goes, tries his card. Somehow this time it works. He dug out uh, some money and handed it to me for the last trip that I paid for the gas at. So as we're sitting there in this town, we're looking out on the other towns, and you can see like about 4, 5 different sets of lights just glows, and you could see it snowing the whole time over there. I said, like I look at the map and I said, well, Timmins is that way, so that's general direction we got to go. He said, all right. He said, do you think we're good without the trucks? I said, well, it's my car. We're looking like we're coming into snow. And this is northern Pacific snow on BC's northern coast. So I said, well, if it goes off the road or things go out of fuck, I'm driving her. So buddy, he back to the passenger side, so he's doing the shotgun deal and I'm doing the driving. We get down to the bottom of the mountain, and as we're driving, I could see snow. Like it's coming into daylight now, and I could see the snow up ahead of us. But the closer we get to it, it's dying off. So we never did drive into the snow. We followed the snow all the way to the coast. By the time we got to the coast, it was raining. And we go to pick up my buddy's brother. He was he worked on the pipelines, and he had injured himself, and this is him getting out of the hospital. So, anyway, I don't know what it was, a shoulder or elbow or something, got seriously injured, and he was off work for the rest of his life because of it, because he had, like, I don't know what it was, 10% or 20% maybe use of it. Like he'd go like this, and he'd go like that. That's it. He could throw his arm up over himself like this, and if he turned it, went like that, he could get his hand up to here. But he had no use of his hand whatsoever. That was the only movements that I ever saw him make with it. And he was in therapy for years. The oil company paid for it. Well, we're heading back home. Like we had stay over for a while just so that my buddy and I, we could get some relaxed time going. So we relaxed and got ourselves all calm, and at that time my buddy's brother says, can I borrow your car? I'll bring it back to you in half an hour. You want me to let you, a total stranger, drive my car I just bought? He goes, man, half hour maximum. He says, I should be 20 minutes, but I'm going to give it half hour. I said, well, man, don't like the thoughts of it. He says, I'll give you $500 cash right now. And he hauled it out, $500, which 93, that was a decent amount of money. He says, you hold that. He says, if I don't come back, he says, that'll at least get you a flight back to Grand Prairie, right? I said, yeah, but I'm still out of car. He said, well, he said, that's where he comes in. And he pointed at his brother. He says, if I don't come back, you guys fly back, and whatever you paid for the car, he will take care of, and I'll take care of him. And Buddy says, I'm good for it. I said, well, yeah, look, we live together. I know that you're making money. He says, good enough. So I said, bro, I said, you take her. He was good to his word, man. We just got done having our fucking Mickey's or Wendy's or whatever the fuck we ate. It might have been a Jungle Jim's for all I fucking remember. But probably a Husky. Anyway, we just finished our bite to eat, and I only had like a small thing, like a burger and fries or, some shit like that. Poutine, maybe. But Buddy drives right back in with the car. So Buddy and I, we pay our bill, we go out, and his brother, he filled the tank up while he was out. So we had a full tank of gas. And I handed back the $500. I said, thanks, man. He said, no, you keep that. He said, that's paying my trip back. I said, well, no, he's paying. He said, fuck him. Take that $500 for yourself. If he wants to pay for the gas, he's more than welcome to, and that $500 yours. Well, fuck, cool. So I'm already up $500. Well, he bought some, how do I put this so that it doesn't get flaky? He bought some stuff that kept us awake, that with heat and the chemical mixture, he turned it from a powder to a rock. I'll just say that. Hopefully that didn't get flagged. But he bought a bunch of that. That's where he went for the drive. So for the next 14-hour drive home, even after, maybe 2.5 hours sleep and a bite to eat, hit that, I'm not in great shape to drive. I don't know why I was driving. But by the time we got to where the snow was and stuff, they had that all cleared out. That was cleared out long before I got there. All you can see is the remnants on the sides of the road. And anyway, we're cruising along. We get up past the peak. We're coming down the other side. And there's some flashing lights behind me. So I pull over. There's not much of a shoulder, but there's enough there that you can pull a vehicle over in case, the breakdown lane. So I pull over in there, thinking, oh, good, I hope this cop goes by. Well, he doesn't. We're the ones he's pulling over. So I'm whacked. And got Buddy in the back seat, got the other guy in the passenger seat. He comes up to me and he calls me by the old owner's name. I said, no, that's the old owner. I just bought this car off him. I just got it transferred, so it's probably not in the system yet. Because when you buy a vehicle out there, you don't buy the plates with it. Normally, you pay extra and get the plates. And instead of just registering the whole car, you register the plates. And as long as it's a road-safe vehicle, you can switch them plates from a car to another car or a truck to another truck. But you can't go crossways, car to a truck. It was weird. Anyway, he called me by the old owner's name, and I said, no, that's the old owner. I just bought the car, and it's probably not in the system yet. He said, okay. He said, what are you doing? He, this thing is like from Alberta. I said, yeah. He said, a little cold to be a tourist. I said, well, I'm not really a tourist. I just drove from Grand Prairie to here, or to Timmins, and picked him up. What was he doing in Timmins? I said, a rehab center. He was doing therapy and stuff like that. He's got his arm all fucked up. I said, why don't you ask him? I just met him. He said, you just met him? And I said, well, this is my roommate. This is his brother. That's why I'm doing this. God goes, gotcha. He says, I get a car just like this. He said, the exact same year and everything, but mine, he says, I've got it tuned out. He says, instead of, he asked me what the motor was, so I told him. He says, instead of 305 four barrel, he says, why don't you get a 352 barrel and get yourself a 2-speed transmission slapstick, throw that in there with, blah, 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 blah. Okay, whatever. And it was going way over my head because I wasn't a car guy at the time. I know a little bit about cars, but not a lot. Anyway, he said, do this to your car and whatnot. I said, okay, whatever. So he let us go. Not even a warning or nothing. I don't know why he stopped us. Maybe it was just because it's the car. But we drive away. Whacked right out of her, like I said. So we're still doing more. We're about an hour's drive away from Beaver Lodge. Just come out of British Columbia into Alberta. And we're pretty much out of the other stuff there to keep us awake. It didn't matter. I was wide awake by then anyway. But we needed gas. So we pulled into this place to get gas, and it was full service, which you never see that much around nowadays. At a couple of the reserves that I know of around here, they will pump your fuel for you. But other than that, I never see it. So maybe I was on a reserve there too, I don't know. But anyway, got the car filled up with gas, which was enough to get home. And we left there. And in between Beaver Lodge and Grand Prairie, there's a place called Wembley. And we're cruising along through there. It's a straight road, straight highway. There was no snow, no nothing on the highway. It was bare open. Well, I'm floating through there, and I'm probably doing 145, 150 kilometers an hour. Not even thinking about what I'm doing. I'm just zooming away in my head, zooming away in the car. Well, as we're coming through Wembley, it's on this side, I believe, on the way into Grand Prairie, and it's like a straight road, a long, long straight road. And I could see red and blue flashing lights coming down the hill. So I slow her down, figuring, okay, well, I'll do the speed limit. When I'm going past them on the Wembley Road, they'll be down near the bottom, and I'll be doing the speed limit. Well, they had radars, detectors all the way along. Not in a car, hooked to the guardrails or stuck on top of the center median, concrete median. And they had me clocked at my fastest at 177 kilometers an hour. And the cop was just waiting for me, and he got there just in time. I slowed down. And true to my word, as I'm sitting here right now, he says, man, he says, I don't blame you for going that speed. He says, you're the only car on the road. Got two lanes that are open and nobody's around. You got a nice car. He says, I'm not going to fine you for it at that top speed. He says, I've got one recorded where you were doing about 15 over. He says, that's what I'm going to charge you with. And out there, I think it was a 67.50 for that ticket, no points on the license. So I said, well, geez, thanks. Really appreciate that, man. He said, no. He says, I appreciate people who like to drive their car fast. He says, matter of fact, he says, on opposite weekends at the certain airport, I'm not going to say their name, at certain airport, uh, every other weekend, they had people who had street cars. They had, you know, high octane fuel cars, stuff that was well put together. And he says, why don't you bring your car by? He says, not a lot of people have the originals, but we do have a contest for that. And I said, sweet, let's do it. So they have a deal with the oil company who owns that airport. That's a private airport. Every 2 weeks, they're flying crews in and out. And they do that all week for 1 week. Then they got a week off. Then they do another fly the next week and then a week off or something similar to that. I don't know the exact dates. Might only be like 3 days off, but every other weekend they alternate. So all the street guys for $10, that's your cover to join the races. Whatever stock you're or whatever series you're in, your racers, your muscle cars, your stock cars, like basic out of the shop stock, high octanes, people with NOS, people without. So it was pretty good. Like it lasted all weekend long, day and night. And there was probably about 1,000 cars there. And I entered mine into the race, and it cost a little extra to enter the race. I think it was $5 a race or something like this, winner take all. And instead of drag racing just two cars, and tarmacs are huge, so they'd set up like 5 cars or 6 cars or, a couple of trucks in there as long as they had the same motor, around the same weight, nothing souped up or nothing like that, everything pure stock. Well, the only thing I did to my car was after that drive, I did a oil change. I changed the antifreeze in my coolant system to something higher and expensive. The oil, I ran a different oil than what I normally would. I ran it for something that would go into like a 427 or something like that. And I had a different rear end that come out of a Corvette that the guys at work, since we weren't working, we still had used to show up there, and they got a great big hoist. So I had my car hoisted up, and we had the chain fall lift so that we could lift the rear end, or drop the rear end and lift the other one, put it in. Well, the second one was a posi track, and other than that, I did nothing to the car. Just put a different rear end on her, and I come in second place my first weekend out there. Uh, I had never come in first place, but second place my first weekend out there, and then it was like a few weeks later I just snuck in on third or second place, not third place. I was in third place, but I just snuck in, but he just missed it just by a little bit. And anyway, yeah, we had lots of fun. Cost me more money than it ever did make me because I never made a cent out of it. But I had a great time doing it. But that was like in October, so they used this uh, truck with these sprayers, sort of like you'd see in farmers' fields with them great big arms. They had trucks that would go all the way up and all the way down and all the way up and then all the way down, and then it would have complete tarmac covered with this liquid. And it was stuff that would eat the snow, would keep the ice off and stuff like that. And uh, they'd do that after we were done racing. I guess it would eat through the rubber and everything else or something. From what I heard, I don't know about that 100%. But that Monte Carlo worked great in the snow. I drove it around the city almost all that winter until the fusible link in my starter, or going from starter through, that went on me, and I didn't know what it was. Like I said, I wasn't a car guy at the time. So I asked another buddy of mine who was a mechanic. I said, "What's wrong with my car? Why won't it run?" And he said, "Well, take it to my shop." He says, "I got a vehicle you can use. Use it until I get yours fixed." I said, "All right, no problem." So he come over with his truck and dolly, and we hooked the car onto it. He took it to his garage, and it was like 5 weeks later. I'm like, "Hey, see, man, like, what about my car?" Like, he said, "Just a day or two longer." I said, "Okay," and it was only a day or two longer. He brings me this car, and from the outside, it looked just like any other 1981 Monte Carlo that rolled off the shelf, except the hood was a little bit off, and he had put some really nice rims and tires on it. And I got into the driver's seat, turned the key. Holy geez, the roar that came out of that thing. I said, "What is that?" I said, "You do something to my to my engine?" He said, "No." He said, "That's not your engine." He said, uh, "My next door neighbor wrecked a car, and he was selling parts off it." He said, "That is a 455 Buick Wildcat." I said, "Okay." He said, "Yes," and it's set up with 2-speed Hurst shifter, uh, death grip, or some shit like that. And I said, "How do you run that?" He says, "Well, it's like a regular automatic. You pull it down, it's in reverse. You slap it back, it's in neutral. It's in low gear. Then you slap it all the way back, and it's in high gear. You can take off in high gear, but it's going to rev." I said, "Okay." I said, "What about low gear?" He said, "Just let it take off itself." I said, all right, I'll jump in her, show me how to run it. So he got behind the wheel. We drive around his part of the city, and it's not revving out that bad, and he's doing a shifting just in time and stuff like that. He must have been used to it because when I got behind the wheel, holy, just a just tap, just a slight like that on the gas, and the whole rear end was just. It took a lot of getting used to, but it had to get up and go that I was not expecting. And after that, taking it out to the tracks, I couldn't go, just uh, your stock vehicle. I had to go onto the modified. And I didn't have any NOS. I didn't have any high octane. I didn't have all the aluminum heads and shit like that. It was a 455 Buick Wildcat that came out of what was that? An old Buick Regal, 70 something Buick Regal, and it had to get up and go that I was not expecting for what I sent to him. Never charged me a cent for it. He said, someday I'll need something from you, and he says, pass the back. I said, good enough, bud. So anyway, like I said, I was working there for a while, and that drive kind of set me off into a different path. I got onto the rocky road, let's say, and I lost my job. And being in the shape I was in, I couldn't find another job. Nobody would want to hire somebody like that, and I don't blame them. And so I decided, well, can't get a job here. I just gone through 12 grand, a matter of 5 months. Didn't make a cent while I'm here. Can't take the car home because can't afford to drive it there. So I called up C-Man. I said, hey, bro. I said, I got enough for plane ticket home and a couple $100 to spare. I said, I have enough hours for unemployment. Just got passed because they made me wait like 8 weeks or something since I was from out of province. I hadn't been there a full year. So anyway, I was getting top stamps for the wages that I worked, which was better than minimum wage back here. So I took that and I switched my account to New Brunswick, and they kept it at the same amount, which back then they did. Now they transferred to the maximum of the new province's amount. And so I was coining pretty good, not working and stuff like that. And when I come back home, I come off that shit. And that was my first bout with it. I've hit 5 or 6 boats with that stuff. And glad to say that it'd be 16 years ago last month. Last month. 16 years ago last month that I've had any type of rocks in my system. So I'm glad that I'm off it, and coming back home that time helped me detox and shit like that and get my life back on track, and having the money that the unemployment paid me, and they paid me for 49 weeks or 48 weeks or something like that. It was almost a full year. And I was making more than minimum wage workers here, like I said. Well, I before I left, I said to C-Man, "Hey man, I got some shit I'm leaving behind at the house. I'm going to put it all in the car, and I need you to park the car in your yard and just take the stuff out of the car. Either put it in storage, sell it, yard sale, get rid of it. I don't care what you do with it. Stuff I don't need. That's why I'm leaving it. Take what you want, do what you want with the rest." He said, "Deal." He said, "What about the car?" He said, "You going to send for it or what?" He says, "I'm coming back east in about 3 years, 4 years." I said, "No, no, I'll move on with my life and do something else before then." I said, "Who knows? I might be in worse shape by then. Could be in better shape and have a better car." I said, "What I need you to do is you look in the glove box when you're taking stuff out of the car. There's an envelope in there with your name on it. It's got the bill of sale saying that you paid." I gave some real cheap price because out there I think it was $300 was 250 or $300 or something like that was after that you had to get the car re-inspected, reinsured and stuff like that. Like through your insurance company, they'd have to see your inspection and then they would insure you. And until then, your insurance is suspended. So anyway, I sold it to them for the cheapest price possible, according to the receipt. And I said, "Just here's my bank account, transfer whatever you think is fair for it, and it's your car now." Well, he had a son that was about 12 years old, 13 years old, something like that. And he liked the car. Liked to go for a rip in it because I'd give it a little shot of gas and it would slide sideways. And he always thought that was great fun. So, C-Man, he said he'd give the car to his son when his son turned 16 then. But he was going to come back here for his son's 16th birthday. So, what he was going to do was pay for it to come back either on a tractor trailer or the train or whatever the cheapest was, and then give his son the car for his birthday back here. And, he'd have something that, like, he already knew people back here, but he'd be able to go, "Hey, look at my car that I just got for my birthday." So anyway, he got the car for his birthday. And I said, that's what matters to me. But see, man, he actually sent me a decent amount for it. I can't remember exactly what it was, like 1750 or something like that. I think that's what a red book for a stock 81 Monte Carlo went for. Was 1750, and I didn't even pay that for the car in the first place. And anyway, he gave the car to his young feller, and I'm quite happy with that. Have at her, bud. I wasn't at the party, but uh, I wasn't really in the shape where financially where I'd be able to keep the car up, so it probably would have sat and rotted, or I would have had to sell it to somebody else for ship price. But I got he did a good deal for me, so I did a good deal for him, and his son put a whole bunch of money into it, and ended up uh, there's a couple raceways in the province here, and after doing the car up some, he ended up entering races and actually making money with it. And he did pretty good with it. And, it sits behind Seaman's parents' old house. They still own it. They rent it out, but there's a garage out back where they have like their collectibles. They've got like Harleys from the 20s, and they've got they got a 68 GTO Judge, uh, 50 something Corvette, 57 or 58 Corvette. Like they got some collectibles out there. So that's why they put this car so that it's in storage, and because it had seen its day, and instead of getting rid of it, you know, put it away with the rest and say, hey, that's got my memories. But that was my car, but only for a few months. But for some reason, September reminded me of going through the mountains and racing the car, and then how just asking a buddy who was a mechanic to help fix you know, the fuse in the car, because I didn't know what it was, and he was the one who told me that's all it was, just fusible link. All he had to do was pop it apart, put a new fuse in, pop it together, turn the key, and it went. So he kept the motor, he kept the rear end, put a new motor, put a new transmission, new rear end in it. The transmission he ended up selling just so that he could pay for some of the parts, but I didn't care. It was a standard or regular transmission. It was an automatic 3-speed 300 series, I think it was, transmission. But anyway, that was a memory that I had, and I'm doing this for memories because in 2019 my father died of complications due to dementia, which is a disease I'd never wish on anyone to see what it did to my father, who was a very, very huge, smart, kind, sometimes man. Growing up, he was very violent, but after that, he turned into a very gentle giant when grandkids come about. And anyway, I watched him deteriorate over a 3.5, 4.5 year period. About 3.5, 4.5 years is what he went through. He had real fast acting dementia because of alcoholism. But anyway, I watched him deteriorate. Wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. But anyway, folks, I just saddened myself after a good memory. Rest well, Dad. Anyway, fellow carbon-based, oxygen-breathing, humanoid, bipedal primates, I'm signing off. Bye.